So, guys, NFL analysts just came out and admitted something about this Dallas defense that honestly, I didn't expect to hear this early in the offseason, and it's not just some generic hype either. There's a specific pattern in how this roster got built this offseason that one insider pointed out, and once you hear it, you're going to look at this whole defense differently. Plus, there's a name connected to the linebacker room that's got people talking, and I've got thoughts on that too. And honestly, after digging into all of this, I've got a feeling this might finally be the year this defense turns things around for us. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Alright, so let's start with the big one, because this is the part that actually got me thinking. Tom Pelissero was with other insiders talking about this defense, and he dropped a point that I honestly hadn't heard anyone else. He said that when you look at basically every player the Cowboys brought in on defense this offseason, with really one exception, they all came from winning programs. Think about that for a second. Otito Ogbonnia comes over from the Chargers, a winning program. Rashawn Gary comes over in a trade from Green Bay, a winning program. D. Winters comes over from San Francisco, and even with all the injuries that team dealt with, they still won 12 games and made a run in the playoffs. Kobe Durant comes from the Rams, another winning program. These aren't guys coming from losing situations trying to figure out how to win. These are guys who already know what it looks like, who already have those habits built in. And the only real exception in that group is Jalen Thompson. And even with him, the guy's got a reputation for winning habits even if the team record didn't always show it. So, when you sit back and think about it, this isn't just Dallas throwing darts at a board this offseason. This is a front office that specifically went out and targeted a certain type of player guys who know how to win, guys who've been in winning locker rooms. Guys who understand what it takes when the lights are the brightest. And I don't think enough people talked about that when free agency was happening. Everybody was looking at the names, looking at the positions, but nobody really connected the dots on where these guys came from and what that says about the identity this coaching staff is trying to build. That's the kind of detail that gets buried under all the noise. But once you see it laid out like that, it changes how you look at this entire defensive overhaul. And look, that ties directly into what's happening with the scheme itself, because Christian Parker coming in as this new defensive coordinator, the way he's talking in these press conferences. Honestly, it sounds like a guy who's been doing this for 20 years, not somebody stepping into his first real chance as a DC. One thing that stood out to me is how he's talked about compartmentalizing word meetings for different position groups, basically making sure that every single guy on that defense knows exactly what he's supposed to do in that scheme, whether it's the coverage calls or the pressure packages. He's built this thing around the base 34 multiple and a base 4-3 multiple, and instead of just throwing a playbook at guys, he's organizing it by category, by pressures, by coverages, by different situational looks. So nobody's drowning in information. And as I discussed in my previous video, they're actually using a pop quiz method as a teaching tool, like literally quizzing these players to make sure the information is sticking. And I know that sounds like a small detail, but when you think about what happened last year where this defense was basically freelancing out there for stretches of the season because guys weren't on the same page, that kind of structure and accountability, that's exactly what was missing. You had the whole situation with Micah Parsons and guys being banged up, and it just felt like this defense never really had a chance to gel because there was so much chaos swirling around it. This wasn't a talent problem, guys. This was a chaos problem, and Parker's entire approach is built around eliminating that chaos before it ever shows up on Sundays. So, when I hear that Parker's bringing this kind of classroom discipline to the building, honestly, that gets me excited because talent was never really the full problem last year. It was more about whether guys knew where to be and what to do once the ball was snapped. And I'll say this too, the fact that they brought Parker in specifically to win now, not to just build for down the road, that tells you everything about how much urgency is behind this hire. Now, we have another player. Insiders are so excited, and that is Caleb Downs. Mina Kimes has been talking him up, and Todd Archer wrote that Downs has already won over veterans with how he's carried himself, both on the field and off it. Coaches are saying he picks things up fast, and honestly, the part that stands out to me the most is that he wants to be coached. He's out there asking for more information, wanting to be corrected, craving that kind of feedback. That's not something you see from every rookie, especially one who's probably going to be thrown right into the fire early. And from what's being said, they want to use him in that nickel safety role, get him in the slot sometimes too, but really they want to protect his strengths, which is his vision and his instincts. They want him attacking downhill, making plays in space, rather than getting stuck in coverage responsibilities that don't play to what he does best. And when you think about what guys like Cooper DeJean in Philly or the nickel roll in Seattle have done for those defenses, letting them stay on the field in sub-packages against the run without sacrificing coverage ability, that's the exact blueprint here with Downs. The difference, and this is something worth being honest about, is that Dallas still has some question marks at linebacker, and the cornerback spots aren't quite as trustworthy yet. So you can't just leave guys on an island the way some of these other defenses can. But even with that being said, Downs being that foundational piece next to what Parker's building, that's a real start to something here. And honestly, guys, this defense is not going to be the best in football next season. Nobody's saying that, but a moderate jump, getting this thing to even just average, that changes everything for this team. Now, here's the part that's got me a little too excited if I'm being honest, and that's Jordyn Brooks. Dallas has reportedly been scouring the league all offseason for that linebacker piece. They looked at Patrick Queen a little bit, but nothing's fully come together yet. Now, I'll be honest, the latest word out of Miami is that they're leaning toward locking Brooks up long-term. He's one of the guys their front office has called a real pillar of that build. So this isn't a layup for Dallas. But contract situations drag on, and until a deal is actually signed, I'm keeping an eye on it because strange things have happened in this league. And if Dallas were somehow able to get something done there, that solidifies this front seven in a way that changes how you evaluate this whole defense. You start thinking less about whether this unit can just be average, and more about whether this could be a top 10 to 12 defense. And look, I know some of you will say I'm getting ahead of myself, but with DeMarvion Overshown already coming back healthy after being so impactful before his injury, that second level of this defense is already looking different than it did a year ago. Brooks or no Brooks. And it's not just about him either. Guys like Darren Bland and Jalen Thompson are already going to have more help behind them than they've had in years. And that's really where my confidence is coming from, because you've got a defensive coordinator bringing real structure after a season that was pure chaos. You've got a rookie safety who's already earned respect and fits exactly the scheme Parker wants to run. You've got a front office that specifically targeted winning habits this offseason instead of just chasing name value. And you've got a legitimate shot at adding another difference maker at linebacker before training camp starts. Now look, I'm not saying this defense is going to be the best in the league, and we still have to see it show up on the field. But this offense was 8th in DVOA and 5th in points per drive last season while losing basically nobody. So all this defense really has to do is get to average. That's it. And this defense was 30th in the league in turnovers created last season. If they just climb out of the basement there, that alone could be the difference between a 7-10 season and a team playing meaningful football in January. If George Pickens is fully in the fold, and this offense keeps doing what it's been doing, and this defense takes even a small step forward in turnovers, that combination is dangerous for the rest of this division and the NFC. And remember, we saw a version of this last year with Seattle, an offense carrying a team into contention while the defense did just enough to hold things together. So, when these national guys start coming out and admitting what a lot of us have kind of felt all offseason, that validates what we've been saying. Training camp starts July 28th out in Oxnard, and I cannot wait to see these pieces come together. I want to see what Siobhan Revel looks like and how Malachi Lawrence and the rest of the young defensive pieces factor into that rotation, because these are going to be contributors from day one. If Parker gets this defense playing with structure, if Downs is as impactful early as expected, and if Dallas can land that last piece at linebacker, this defense stops being the reason this team loses games and starts being the reason it wins the ones that matter most. And I'll leave you with this. Look at the depth this staff has quietly built up front. LT Overton, Jay Toya, Jonathan Bullard, guys who won't be the headline, but who give this defensive line a level of rotation they didn't have last season. James Houston is sneaky good in this scheme. Devin Moore, Marquise Bell, names that might not mean much right now, but by December, a few of them will be part of the conversation. This coaching staff built actual competition and depth at every level of this defense. And that's exactly why I'm feeling like 2026 might finally be the year this whole thing comes together.